Communications Authority, Mr. Ezra Chiloba. Let us listen in.
You've not even told us about radio. I imagine that it would be similar to what your television is saying, but what about the digital content? What about the things that were being moved around? Doesn't it mean that there could be somebody else somewhere in the world who still believes this man is a man of God, and so on and so on? As a follow-up to that, when you discover that a person you've given license and he is obviously violating the conditions, after you find out from your monitoring exercise as a regulatory authority, what are the punishments that you do other than just giving notice and suspending the license? The content is already there. What is it that you do to that person? Because it's already harmful and it's already being consumed by the people. And knowing that you have a responsibility to check that your consumers, the Kenyan consumers, are not being fed with falsehoods and false information, what action, what penal actions do you take against followers such as those? Maybe you can take that one, and then we will give the other members. Do you want to allow him, or you want to come in on that? Further on that, please take notes. Director, you want to take notes because Senator Onyonka is also having a question as a follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here to listen to the presentation which has been made. I wanted to ask Honorable Chiloba. I've got 3 questions. Question number 1, given the reality of what is happening right now in the media, that media includes the social media, it includes what is called historically the normal media, and all the media per se. Are you satisfied that the legal framework that we have right now in this country serves the purpose it was meant to be 10 years ago when we actually passed these laws? Do the periods which you write to somebody who has transgressed, in this case, even when you knew very well that the correspondence and the discussions about the matters that were being raised, and whichever standard that you are using, the periods which the law which exists tells you, for example, you have to stop or rather you have to summon them, then you're gonna have to stop them, and then, as you said, you give them 2 weeks, and since then they have not been there. Now the problem I'm having is that if you do that, then you are going to find it very difficult if somebody is preaching some toxic stuff. Do you have a mechanism on how you could actually immediately stop the transmission of such toxic stuff, whether it is hate, whether it is issues on medical, in terms of preachers telling patients not to? That is question number 1. Question number 2 that I wanted to ask you is, given the experience you've had from the time when these matters came out, are you comfortable that as we look at this whole exercise in terms of the matters that have been raised, that this issue will not happen again? And finally, Chair, the last comment I wanted to make is that, is this a matter that, from your experience, Honorable Chiloba, is this issue of people using TV and radio stations only in church, or do we have any other events which are usually organized and practiced? And are you prepared to make sure that we don't have any surprises? In other words, I'm actually asking a question: are you comfortable when it looks like we are dealing with Mackenzie and his friend only, and yet you know very well in this country we've had other churches that are actually discussing some of those things. The videos that you see are just astounding. I'm sure, I hope we are together. Thank you, sir.
So please let's have those two senators. You can engage on those, and then we'll take others. You have the floor, Director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and those questions. Just in case, I'll get my colleague to respond to one issue around the social media and how we regulate that space. But just to kick us off, yes, the issues around digital content. I must start by saying that the law does not give the authority the powers to deal directly with the digital content in the manner in which we deal with the broadcasting sector. We've been debating, for example, internally, where you know that you have a direct mandate for the broadcasters. And we think that any broadcaster airing content online must be subject to the same regulatory instruments. But again, there's a catch there, that if you look at online broadcasting, licenses that we have could only constitute like 0.01% of what goes on online. So we've got many other broadcasters in the name of individuals, the name of clubs, others are doing it for fun, who are not licensed, given the nature and structure of that particular space. So combining that issue with what Senator Onyanja has raised, is that this is a new frontier. We're calling the new frontier of regulation. And as we speak, we don't have a sound legal framework to help us regulate that particular space. And we project that in the next 5 years, a lot of the traditional media is going to collapse, and all of it is going to converge around the digital space. And for that reason, we need to move away from the regulatory regime that has been governing this sector for the last 10 years to a totally new space. And I'm glad to report that starting December or November last year, there's been a process that we had commenced with the Ministry of ICT. There's a task force that had started looking at those regulatory instruments, and some of them will be coming to Parliament the beginning of July, looking and addressing some of these major gaps. So you're moving away from the traditional media to a more digital space, and that means the regulatory regime and approach must change. On the content
Mr. Director, you're saying right now you can't pull down nasty information that is in the online media, even if someone is preaching suicide, you can't. Is that what you're saying?
And that is at Parliament buildings, where the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Shakahola deaths are currently meeting with the Director General, the Communications Authority, Mr. Ezra Chiloba, and also there are the Director of Business Registration and the Director of the National Registration Bureau. So that is what is going on at the moment, and it's a probe to find out just exactly what happened and how much can be done.